Falche Akhirat. Welcome to the Lughnsadh edition of the New Order of Druids podcast. The topic of this podcast is an overview of the Indo-European religion, or at least what we were able to reconstruct from it. In the last episode, I gave you an outline of their history, and I hope that it got you interested in learning more about them. So let's begin. The Indo-European religion is built on two concepts. The first is the idea of reciprocal hospitality, and the second is the pattern of the universe. Let us start with the concept of reciprocity. There is an interaction among people and between people and the gods according to the laws of hospitality. Society is bound together by an exchange of gifts, by acting as guests on one occasion and a host on another. In the same way, the Indo-Europeans thought that they are bound to the gods through the giving of gifts and receiving of blessings, what we now call offering to the gods. This is the origin of the Indo-European version of sacrifice. When one was performed, some of the animal was burned to the gods, and then the people who offered it ate the rest, which was most of the meat. It is a contract between the patron god and the client, and each has an obligation that must be done correctly for the relationship to last. The Indo-Europeans saw the cosmos as centered around a tree and surrounded by water, which also rose up through a well to feed the tree. The tree was the cosmos itself, an ordered arrangement of things and actions, and the water was chaos, disorder. Notice that order is fed by disorder. Left to itself, order, like any unwatered tree, becomes brittle and dead. An influx of chaos is vital to its life. Chaos is dangerous and not capable of supporting life on its own, however, and only becomes meaningful when it is drawn into order. It is through an interaction, again reciprocity can be seen here, that the universe can continue to exist. If the cosmos is a tree, then its branches form a pattern. Notice a number of things. First, the pattern forms itself out of the growth of the tree itself. As the cosmos grows, and actions and things arise and are added to the cosmos, the pattern of the branches changes. The pattern of the cosmos therefore arises from the cosmos rather than from outside of it. The Indo-Europeans formed their lives within the organizing pattern, and then their lives, like all things that happen in the cosmos, are fed into the pattern. The things they did as they passed or passed away also fall into the waters of chaos. Eventually, however, like the water from the well, all that they have given to chaos returns to cosmos, transformed first in the waters and then by the tree. Like the tree, they have been fed by chaos, and then they feed chaos in turn. For more information, please check out the episode notes for a bibliography of resources we used for this overview. Keeping to the same theme, let's go over to the book review section. For a more in-depth look at the Indo-European religion, it is best to listen to one of the known experts on the subject. The name of the book is Deep Ancestors, Practicing Religion of the Proto-Indo-Europeans by Kiswer Sereth. The author begins by explaining who the Indo-Europeans are, but not in depth, what their society is like, and then he goes on to discuss their creation myth and their cosmology. We are told of the importance of order and law to the Proto-Indo-Europeans, and how this affects the laws of the society, the laws of ritual, and the laws that govern the individuals. One of the most important chapters in this book, from my point of view, was the chapter that talks about the spiritual beings. They are divided into deities, ancestors, land spirits, miscellaneous beings, and the outsiders. However, these categories are not hard and fast. There are worlds that these beings dwell in, above, where the celestial deities live, below, in the land of the dead, where the ancestors live, the horizontal plane, where the land spirits live, and the water, or beyond them, where the outsiders live. The chapter that continues to discuss the nature of the gods and different gods and goddesses of the Proto-Indo-European religion. The author also discusses the practices of the Proto-Indo-Europeans at home and in groups, and he gives examples of reconstructed rituals and divination. The book ends with 4 appendices. The first is a brief glossary, the second is a pronunciation guide, the third is an explanation of how to clarify butter, which is very interesting, and the fourth is an explanation of how to mark a sacred space. The book also has an extensive reference section, which I really appreciated. The book took me a while to read because I was trying to digest everything in it. It is written in a simple manner for anyone interested in the Pi religion to read. I would suggest, though, that you read a bit about the Pi history before you read this book because it assumes that you know most of the history already. Now for a little trivia. Here is some more trivia from Ireland for you. Did you know that the names of the days in Irish contain an interesting mix of pre- and early Christian elements? The Christian practice of fasting on Friday is reflected in the Irish name for that day, Dihin, where in means fasting. The name for Wednesday, Decadine, is derived from Anchaid, which means the first, and in, meaning fast. So the word for Wednesday, Decadine, means the first fasting. Dirdin, or Thursday, is a conflation of day plus idir, which means between, and in, so altogether it means the day between fasting. Fasting was very much on the minds of those early Christian communities. Now let us look at the rest of the days. Dunach, meaning church, gives us the Dunach, or church day for Sunday. Dunach is now obsolete, but can still be found in places like Dunach Mor, in counties Cork, Tyrone, Down, and Laois. The Lune, or Monday, comes from the Latin dies luna, meaning day of the moon. De Mort, or Tuesday, comes from dies Martis, meaning day of March. Day of Mars. And finally, the Saharin, or Saturday, which comes from Dies Saturni, meaning day of Saturn. And now for the Bardic Corner. The blessing we have for you today comes from kindling the Celtic spirit. You say this blessing before you sit down for the feast of Lughnsadh. This is a blessing designed to give thanks for the blessings of the first fruits of harvest. The blessing is called Grace by Dennis King. In the presence of my people, back to the beginning of life, in the witness of the gods and young gods, in homage to the immense generosity of the universe, I give thanks before my portion. Our second poem was submitted by NODCast Lughnsadh of the Benevolent Order of Solitary Druids, who says, as I searched my favorite poetry site, oldpoetry.com, I came across this gem. When I first read it, I thought that for sure this author was pagan, maybe of the Druids tribe. However, I was very surprised when I read his bio. His background is a travelogue writer, hymn writer, as well as public speaker, and he also wrote books on religious subjects. As I read further, I discovered the profile of a person who followed a similar path to many pagans, born into one religion, disillusionment with that faith, and conversion to a new faith. While he did finally turn to a different religion than most pagans find, the path seems one that I can relate to. I have since read a number of his poems and find them all well done. I hope that you take the time and explore this interesting author. This author is called John Lawson Stoddard, and the poem is called The Pagan Past. The poem says, what Sylvian god was worshipped here? What nymph once made this grove her home, and bathed within its fountain clear, when Caesar ruled the world at Rome? Did Pan frequent this charming site, so hidden from the haunts of men? did nymphs and satyrs dance at night within this moon-illuminated glen? Ah, who can doubt it, when these vines form trellised screens for distant snow and trace in arabesque designs their profiles on the alpine glow. So sure were dryads to select a region thus supremely fair, so apt were the mortals to erect in such a place a shrine for prayer. The 2 millenniums have not brought diminished splendor to this bay, the strand which Pliny loved and sought in no less beautiful today. Hence, while the fragrant rose leaves fall, and white magnolia blossoms gleam, above my wave-lapped garden wall, I seem to see, as in a dream, the kneeling forms of those who laid their floral offerings on that shrine, and hear their grateful tribute paid to beautiful rightly deemed divine. Doth some divinity each morn cast over me its ancient spell, that this sweet landscape seems forlorn without the gods who loved it well? Men tell me that they are dead and gone, but when my soul is moved to pray, I feel besides my sculptured faun, they are not very far away. For I, who love this classic lake, and cruised along its storied shores, see roaming galleys in my wake, and hear the stroke of phantoms oar. It matters not which way I steer, or if my course be slow or fast, the pagan world seems always near. I sail companioned by the past. Thank you for listening to our show, and I hope that you have enjoyed all you heard. If you would like to have your poems featured in our podcast, then please send an email. You can find the link on the webpage. We also welcome your feedback. So until next time, Slán go fóill!